Hey everyone, Brandon here. Regional evolutions and straight up new evolutions have started popping up in the past couple generations. So naturally, when I started creating my own Pokemon region, Devar, I wanted to make a bunch of my own. One aspect we have seen in Gen 8 is Pokemon getting new split evolutions through regional forms such as with Berserker, Runerigus, and Sneasler, as well as an outright new split evolution with Kleavor. Given Devar is based on India, Nepal, and parts of the surrounding area, it would make sense for a Pokemon that already had a major basis in India, and by proxy Hinduism, to get a new split evolution. That Pokemon would be none other than Meditite. Along with its evolution Medicham, these Pokemon are based on yoga and Hindu deities like Shiva and Ardhanari. Personally, I have always had a fondness for this line, so I wanted to show it some more love in this region. As you may well know, Medicham's gimmick is its main ability, Pure Power, which doubles its attack stat. So how about we make a counterpart that is more of a special attacker? Then you would get something like Meditite's new split evolution, Meditama, the Liberation Pokemon, a psychic fighting type that I worked with the amazing Anartist Astray to create. Though the switch in primary type doesn't really do anything mechanically, it is more symbolic of the switch in focus for this Pokemon, putting the brain over the brawn in this instance. Meditama's name comes from meditate, obviously, and Siddhartha Gautam, better known as Lord Buddha. I felt it would be a great fit to have this evolution reference the Buddha, given the Indian subcontinent is the birthplace of Buddhism, and Meditite's meditating nature, with the Buddha probably being one of the most famous meditators worldwide, and meditation being intrinsic to Buddhism as a whole. This evolution retains Meditite's color scheme, rather than turning red like Medicham. Lord Buddha being depicted as having blue skin is not unheard of, though it is usually depicted using gold, which would be referenced in the shiny of Meditama. This also forms a cool little color triangle of shinies between the three members of this line. As far as its stats, Medicham's attack and special attack stat are the exact same, so we wouldn't even really need to change the stat distribution, though we will a tiny bit. We will switch the speed and HP stats, as Meditama is not really going much of anywhere, unlike its bouncy, dancing counterpart Medicham. But now we've come to the Dawn fan in the room. How exactly will Meditama match Medicham's ability? For that, we have the new ability Mindful, doubling the Pokemon's special attack stat. The name is a bit of a double entendre, being like mindful, which meditation is all about mindfulness, but also that its mind is full of knowledge and understanding. Meditite evolves into Meditama if leveled up to level 37 while holding the new item, the Focus Beads, which my buddy Malmistex helped bring to life. The Focus Beads not only help evolve Meditite, but also have a secondary use, boosting the power of Psychic-type attacking moves if used consecutively. Kind of like the Metronome item, but you can use it with a variety of Psychic-type moves, instead of the same one every time. The item itself and its ability are a reference to Buddhist Mala beads, which are used in meditation, usually alongside some kind of repeated mantra to assist in concentration. Meditama are in a constant state of meditation. Even fainting does not break its concentration. Many monks throughout Devar aspire to be able to reach the level of focus a Meditama has. Another new split evolution comes in the form of an evolution to Barboach. Whiscash is a bit of a secondary mascot on this channel and even has its own emote Whizcash, so I made this one as a tribute to my mods. With that said, here is Barboach, the Devilfish Pokemon, a water dark type, who I worked with the amazing Chartius arts to bring to life. There exists a certain kind of catfish that can be found in India named the Goonch catfish, also known as the giant devil catfish. And this catfish certainly earns that title, being absolutely enormous, and with one having been rumored to have fatally wounded multiple people and even eaten small children who dared to swim in the murky rivers it resides in. Barboach follows this dark origin in its typing, but also in its behavior, aggressively attacking any that enter its territory. It evolves from Barboach at level 30 while in or near the waters of Patanata Falls found in southwest Devar, referencing how the Goonch attacks were noted around the Kali River in Karnataka, which this area is meant to reference with its numerous waterfalls. Another regional evolution we have actually already introduced is Devarian Hawlucha and Haruda respectively, based on the Hindu deity Garuda, which you can learn more about in this video here. But there was also a couple Devarian forms and a new evolution that I actually introduced in a video before this series had even started. What am I talking about? Well, last year I made a video in which I gave the rest of the Route 1 rodents their own dark normal regional forms paired with brand new third stage evolutions. A keen-eyed viewer might have noticed for the Centret line, who I worked with Fakemon to create, that a lot of inspirations I used came from India. This was yet another hint towards Devar, just like how I did with Scrap Up and a Mongrel. To explain a bit more about this line, Centret and Furret's coloration is inspired by the Nilgiri marten, which is found in southern India in the hills of the Nilgiri Mountains, for which it is named. The little mask-like pattern of this animal fits well onto this line and their dark normal typing, and it also refers to anti-heroes, characters who do heroic things but not so much much in a traditional heroic way, such as Red Hood and Deadpool, which this line's red shiny forms make reference to, as well as lining up with the shiny forms of Alolan Rattata and Galarian Zigzagoon. Sentret and Furret became this way in Devar to avoid predation, as some Pokemon in Devar were crafty enough to outmaneuver their typical defense mechanisms, so they adapted to become nocturnal, adopting a darker coloration and typing to make it easier to sneak around at night. Sentret retained their lookout nature, taking shifts during the day to make sure that their friends can sleep, and Furret and Devar are even more elusive than their Johtonian counterparts, but can intimidate foes with a nasty snarl if necessary. At level 35, Devarian Furret evolves into Sorit, the long-tail Pokemon, a dark flying type. I always thought it a bit strange that Furret completely abandons the flying squirrel inspiration of Sentret, so this Pokemon is the best of both worlds, while mixing in elements of both the Indian giant squirrel and the Indian giant flying squirrel. With this evolution, the sort of anti-hero motif has turned more into just a darker hero, like the Dark Knight himself, Batman. Sorit are masters of the air at night, able to land and take off in seconds. They will glide over cityscapes, exclusively targeting and taking down Pokemon that bully others. Moving on from an older generation Pokemon to a Pokemon from the newest generation, Klawf. This dude took the internet by storm when it was initially introduced and definitely captured my heart. Klawf is based on a few different kinds of crabs, along with a bit of rock climbing, but it is also one of many puns in the form of a Pokemon, most likely being based on rock crabs, as in a literal rock crab. So being the pun enjoyer that I am, I wanted to maintain that aspect of Klawf. So before I explain more, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Devarian Klawf, a pure grass type, who I also worked with Anards to Stray to create. Rather than a rock crab, this version of Klawf is a tree crab, literally, changing its little hairy elbows into little bushes, taking it from the ambush Pokemon to the ambush Pokemon. With the abundance of trees in Devar, it became more advantageous for Klawf to blend in with said trees rather than the cliff phases like in Paldea, though it will strike in the same manner as Paldean Klawf, masking itself amongst the foliage of the trees, easily able to land on top of prey passing by. But this video is about evolutions, so of course, in Devar, Klawf evolves into Klarber, the mangrove Pokemon, a grass water type. Upon this evolution, the pun of this Pokemon has evolved as well, now being a literal mangrove tree crab. Though the actual mangrove tree crabs are native to the Americas, mangrove crabs can be found all over Southeast Asia and the Indian Ocean. On top of that, India and Bangladesh are home to the Sundarbans, and the Sundarban Reserve Forest, the largest mangrove forest in the world, which is referenced with Klarber and the mangrove forests west of Vizaqua and Kalhiti, where Devarian Klawf and Klarber can be found. Design-wise, Klarber obviously has its pun origins, but with its bushy beard and eyebrows, it also makes reference to the Great Deku Tree, a recurring character in the Legend of Zelda franchise. And yet another small reference to Zelda would come in the way that Klarber would appear in the overworld, with it looking like a normal mangrove tree until it drudges itself out of the mud to come and attack you, just like the Evermeans from Tears of the Kingdom, or for more of a Pokemon-related comparison, like Griefard and Houndstone in Paldea. And there is yet another Paldea Pokemon that receives a brand new evolution in Devar, Spidops. This Pokemon is pretty polarizing, with its fans absolutely loving it and its haters hating it. This Pokemon definitely grew on me, and with it having a measly 404 base stat total and big middle stage energy, I knew I wanted to give this dude an evolution. So after leveling up to level 34 while knowing the new bug type move False Retreat, Spidops would evolve into Arakakara, the tactic Pokemon, a pure bug type, which I also worked with Kaifake Monasar to create. This Pokemon ties together elements of Spidops and Tarantula, bringing the line full circle, but its name as well as its design come from the Panch Kakar, also known as the 5Ks of Khalsa Sikhs. The Kara, which is also incorporated into its name, is an iron band, which is displayed as the webbed bands around Arakakara's arms and shoulders, the Kesh, which is seen in this Pokemon's beard, the Kanga, which is not exactly seen in this design as it is usually covered by a turban or dastar, but the wrap around this Pokemon's head refers to it, the Kachera, which is reflected in the sort of clothing around Arakakara's waistline, and finally the Kirpin, which this Pokemon's arms are shaped like. The pose also evokes one of the symbols of the Sikhs, the Khanda. I felt Khalsa Sikhs would be great to reference with an evolution of Spidops, as they were a smaller militaristic group that was frequently outmanned, so they had to use more strategic methods to take down the enemy. just like Spidops, who references Special Ops Forces, who also use different and more strategic methods to take out their target. The main strategy of Kalsaseeks was called Daipot, or 2.5 strikes, in which they would attack, pretend to retreat, then attack again to confuse the enemy, which is referenced in that false retreat move I mentioned earlier. When using said move, Arakakara retreats to your party, in which you can swap into another Pokemon for one turn, but then the following turn, Arakakara will swap back in automatically and hit the Pokemon with a priority base 70 attacking move that guarantees to confuse the target. The move would not be shown, so your opponent won't know if this is actually a hard swap or just false retreat, leaving room for a bit of swap prediction. It essentially gives you a form of a meat shield for a turn, which is great given it is pure bug type, often considered one of the weaker types. Speaking of, this evolution would make the Tarantula line the first 3-stage line that is pure bug type, which is why I didn't give it a secondary typing. If it was going to gain a new typing, it probably would have been with Spidops, who learns a good amount of moves outside its typing. Arachnophobia warning here, but Arakakara is inspired by the decorative Silver Orb Weaver, which does a similar thing with its legs to the Ogre Spider from which Spidops is inspired, and it shares the coloration with this line. Oh, and one final fact is Arakakara joins Eevee, Ho-Oh, Alomomola, and the Girafarig line in the Palindrome Name Club. Going back 2 generations, we have an evolution for what I feel is an often overlooked Pokemon, Drampa. This Pokemon is actually so cool and is wholesome as heck. If you watch the Sun and Moon anime, you will know what I mean, with it embodying the grandparents it is named after, protecting and playing with children. It can also be very destructive if angered, which plays into its dragon side. Well, in Devar, Drampa's love of children and destructive nature grows even stronger, when at level 45, after following you for 1,000 steps, it evolves into Dramparade, the float Pokemon, a normal dragon type, which I worked with the incredible Deems Fakemon to create. This Pokemon's inspiration comes from the Meitei people found in the Manipur region of northeast India. During the religious festival of Lai Haroba, a special racing boat called the Hyang Huren is used in a ceremony called Hyang Tanaba. This boat race is believed to ward off evil spirits, as the boats are imbued with spiritual powers. You can see here there's a Hyang Huren being featured in the Republic Day Parade, which is partly what inspired this concept. Parade floats are seen all over the world. And you know who loves being at and taking part in parades? Kids! So Dramparade represents that, letting kids and parents alike ride on its back around villages, making them feel special, and in fact imbuing them with protection against ghost-type Pokemon. The shape of this Pokemon is also reminiscent of the dragon-headed longships of the Vikings, and another well-known grandpa figure fused with a boat, the King of Red Lions from The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. And of course, if we're giving Drampa an evolution, we have to give its game-exclusive counterpart, Turtonator, an evolution as well. So at level 45, after defeating 3 Turtonator that are holding the new Mortar Scale item, which Mamastex also did the art for, Turtonator evolves into Tortank, the Ballistic Turtle Pokemon, a Fire Dragon type, which I also worked with Deems to create. Tortank takes the blasting nature of Turtonator and turns it up to 11, being partly inspired by tanks or war bunkers, with its long nose looking like turrets. Tortank's long snout is also inspired by the soft-shell spiny turtle, and it is also clearly reminiscent of the Indian star tortoise, which you can see the bottom of Tortank's shell is shaped like a star. But the Indian inspiration doesn't stop there. This Pokemon is inspired by a festival by the name of Agni Kelly, otherwise known as the Firefight, in which hundreds of people light pieces of palm branches or fronds on fire and throw them at each other. Don't worry, as to prevent themselves from getting serious burns, there are devotees on site to help with any medical care needed, and the participants only wear these orange clothes called lungi to reduce the chance of catching on fire. The little fiery tips of Tortank's shell reference the burning palm fronds, and the orange coloration on the shins reference the lungi. Tortank's snout is used to fire off a cavalcade of devastating incendiary blasts, while its explosive shell guards it from oncoming attacks. Also, Dramparade and Tortank tie their pre-evolutions together even further by mutually having a theme of festivals. And those are some regional evolutions of the Devar region. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.